All right, let's step back from what we've developed so far and look at some analytical apparatus, so to speak, when doing business ethics cases. Business ethics cases almost always have a purely business and economic component. There's an analysis of what are the economic or business facts on the ground that we are dealing with. They always have an ethics component, right? What ethical principles or moral principles are embedded in the case study, or should we bring to bear in order to solve or otherwise analyze the case study? And in almost every business ethics case, there's a political component about what the proper role of government is in this business scenario. Should it be to be more activist or less activist, right, and so forth. So let's see what we've got so far. Our initial situation was to say, if we look at the economics issue, that if we have a free market, all right, so here we are talking economics, right, we should have supply and demand pricing. But we also think that we will end up with win-win, right, economic results. And so one claim is that economically, a free market is going to yield generally win-win results. The other side of the debate wants to make the exact opposite. It says if we have a free market, instead what is going to occur are win-lose results. So one part of the rent control debate is a different economic analysis about the likely effects of a free market in rental housing. The other side of the issue is the advocacy of rent control and opposition to it. This position says that a free market will have a win-lose result, and so as a consequence, what we should do is advocate rent control, because that will then lead to a flipping of the win-lose result. Tenants will win and landlords will lose, instead of tenants losing and landlords winning. The other side of the debate then says, fine, you can advocate rent control as a policy, but these are not actually the results that you're going to get. If we play out the economic analysis, what we end up with is, in terms of the economics, and it's mostly over here, all economics, we end up with a lose-lose result. So the other side is to say, if we don't have a free market, if we have rent control, what are the consequences of rent control? Are they win-lose or are they win-lose? So one indication of the thoroughness of an analysis is when you look at the economic issues, and there's two proposals on the table, do you end up with all of the logically possible results? And so here we have a win-win claim, a win-lose claim, another lose-win claim, having reversed there, and then a lose-lose claim. And that's a sign that we're on to something. We also then have a ethics analysis. The standard scenario here is saying that we should operate according to the ethics, right, of egoism. That is to say, the right way to treat business scenarios is to treat the adults involved as self-responsible agents, that they are trading with each other, and as long as the trade is voluntarily, that they have both agreed to it, and they're both making the judgment that it's a win-win, that's a moral scenario, and we should leave it at that. So we're operating according to the principles of egoism. The other side of the argument is to say that that's not an accurate analysis of some subsectors of the rental market. Instead, it is the ethics of predation, right, that's actually being played out. And we're opposed to the ethics of predation, this side will argue. And instead, the appropriate ethical policy that we should be judging interactions of people is more altruistically. And if we're not getting altruistic results, if instead we're getting predatory results, then that altruism justifies a certain kind of government intervention. And that takes us to politics. Over here, we have a political view that says when we're thinking about whether government should be involved or not, how should the government use its power, this side is saying, as a matter of general principle, the government should be operating on the policy of protecting people's rights, whether they're on the buyer or the seller side of any given transaction. Parties have equal liberty rights, they have equal property rights, and so forth. and only if there are violations of those rights or threats to the violation of those rights does the government morally and properly use its power to intervene. Otherwise, things will work themselves out laissez-faire in a free market. Over here, by contrast, we have an interventionist account of government, and this is then a different set of political principles. We're not primarily advocates of equal rights. Instead, we go into business ethics cases looking for weaker parties and stronger parties because we have a suspicion that in many cases what will happen is the strong will take advantage of the weak, and so the government can and should properly be using its power more paternalistically to protect the weaker from the stronger. So we have a political debate, we have an ethics debate, and we have an economics debate. The Kahn position over here hasn't yet said anything about politics, so I do want to add one more little unit about how this side will argue the politics of rent control.